The next file I'm going to work on is my PM2.5 file, and that is another comma delimited text file. So I'm going to open up my folder, Analyzer Raw Data, that includes my original data files from the sampler that I don't manipulate. And I'm going to make a copy of the PM2.5 file. So I right click and select copy, then I close this folder. And I go into my Toolbox Import Files folder and right click and select paste. And the first thing I want to do is change the name of the file so there's no question on which file I'm manipulating. So I right click and select rename, and then I put my cursor right before the S and I'm going to type in manipulated, and now my file's renamed, so I click on the enter key. So let's open up this file and see what manipulations I need to make to it. So I see it's comma delimited because the comma separates each of these fields. Notice that the date and the time are in the same column, but that column header is time. That's just something to notice. I'm going to take a look at my checklist now for this file. Comma delimited text file, it is. I've not yet named it uimport.txt, but I'm still going to check this off because it is a comma delimited text file. Number 2, unique header columns for each column in row 1. There are column names in the first row. However, the column names are not unique for each column. So if you'll notice here, we've got multiple column names of NOV. So notice we have NOV here, we have NOV here, we have NOV here. That's not going to work for importing into the toolbox. We need to fix that. So I don't check off that. Data begins in row 2. That is true. So I will check off that. Let's see if there's any blank rows in here. So at the bottom, you'll notice all this extra space. That means that there are blank rows in this data that we need to take out. So I did not check off that. Number 5 contains complete dates in common date format or serial date format with each time in a new row. That is true. Each time is in a new row. Concentration or parameter data has at least one digit after the decimal in the first row of data. So here is the concentration field, and this also has a column header of concentration, so we know that that is the concentration values. So I look and it's the second column over here. So we look at this number right here, it's 19. And that actually doesn't have a decimal plate with a number after it, but that's actually okay in this case because none of these values do. So I collect integer data for this particular sampler. So that's okay. So we don't need to change anything there. So I can click this off. We're good on that. Number 7 contains a known and log in your database logbook number of records. We don't know the number of records yet, so that's not checked. Number 8, have a backup copy named and saved elsewhere. I do have a backup copy named something else, and it's saved in a different folder on my computer, so I can check that off. And number 9, be saved in the Tribal Data Toolbox version 3.0 folder on your C drive. I haven't saved this file there yet since I'm not ready to import it, so I don't check off that. So let's recap. What do I have to fix? Let's see, I have number 2 about the unique column names, number 4 about the blank rows, and I just need to know how many records are in this data file. So that's not a whole lot of things that I need to change, and I'm perfectly comfortable working in the text file. I don't need to import it into Excel to do this. However, if you wanted to make the modifications in Excel, you could do that too. So the first thing I need to fix is the column names because we have some duplication of column names here. So NOV, I'm going to leave this one as NOV. This one I'm going to type in a 1 directly after the V, after the parentheses. So I'm going to put my cursor there and click. And then I'm just going to type a 1 on my keyboard. And then for NOV here, I'm just going to type a 2 after the V in the parentheses. So I'll type a 2 on my keyboard after I put my cursor there. And now look what we've got. Unique field names. Easy as 1, 2, 3, right? So I can go ahead and check that off in my little checklist. And again, this is really useful to have and to use. So I hope you guys use it as well. So the next thing is blank rows. So I need to scroll to the bottom where those blank rows were. And I need to click in the first blank row and then I'm going to click and drag, and that's going to highlight the other blank rows. So when I click and drag, I'm going to click and drag to the end of the file. And what happens when you do this with blank rows is that you don't really see them because there's nothing to highlight. So you don't really see them being highlighted, but believe me, they are. So I'm going to click and drag until I can't click and drag no more. And then I press the delete key on my keyboard, and woohoo, they're gone. Alright, so that's what I need. Now my blank rows are gone. So I can go ahead to go into my checklist and check off number 4, which says no blank rows, because I have now removed the blank rows from my data. So I'll check that off and minimize this. And I know my status bar is there because I can see the status bar indication here on the right side of the screen. So I need to know how many records are in this file. So I'm going to click in the last row here, and it tells me that there are 335 lines in my file. Remember that one of the lines at the top here, this is my header line, so my lines of actual data is 334. So I log that in my database logbook. I also want to log the first date and the first time. So the first date is January 5th, 2015 at 8 a.m. and the last date and time in my file is January 19th, 2015 at 7 a.m. and I write that down in my logbook. And from my sampler manual, I also know that these are start times. So in other words, this period with the 8 o'clock started at 8 and went to 9. I'm also going to record in my database logbook that the time column actually contains both the date and the time. One last thing I want to log in my database logbook is the units of my PM2.5 data, and the units are micrograms per meters cubed, and you can tell that from the column header. If you didn't know that from your column header, you can look at your sampler manual to know what units your concentration data are in. So I can go back in my checklist here and check off item 7, because now I know how many records are in my file. And let's make sure that everything is checked off here. The only one that's not checked off is item 9, and that's because I haven't moved it to the Tribal Data Toolbox folder yet. So I'm going to wait to do that until I'm ready to import the file. So for now, I'm going to save this file. So I go to File and Save. And I can close my file because I've now got everything ready for importing into the toolbox. The homework for this module is to use the SOP for a toolbox ready file as your guide and convert a pollutant data file that you want to import into the toolbox into a toolbox ready file. Also, convert a metadata file that you want to import into the toolbox. If you don't collect metadata, please let your instructors know that. And if your pollutant data and your metadata are in the same file, that's fine. And then you email your toolbox ready files to the instructors. And for extra credit, if you have pollutant data from other samplers or data loggers, also generate a toolbox ready file for those and email them to the instructors. And the extra credit you get is assistance from the instructors on analyzing these files and making sure that they are, in fact, toolbox ready files.